It's Chris, Liege Games. Let's do this. Post 3,000, right? Only got 7K more to go by the end of the year. No pressure, right? Anyway, that's my own personal goal. Let's talk news. Board game news, specifically. What's hot? What do you need to know about? What has come out the past week? What is coming up? Why are things on the hotness? What do you need to know about? And all of that ilk. I had a good gaming weekend. Did you guys have a good gaming weekend? I got a couple more games of Deliverance in. I got Mechanical Beast. I got Destinies. So expect reviews from those whenever I can compile things together. But that's not why you're here. As always, though, thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. Hopefully this is helpful. I'm also, if you noticed the video that came out yesterday, doing these short little news clips too. Is that helpful? I don't know. Do you like all more and condensed? Watch a little longer, get a little more in, pick and choose, or, you know, a little snippet here and there of, hey, newsflash, newsflash, newsflash. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Obviously, I'll be able to tell a little bit on the views side of things too, you know, which one has got a little more traction, which one is a little more popular. But, you know, the goal with all of this is to keep you guys engaged. Now that I've hit 3,000, if you're watching this, what do I need to do to get you subscribed to me? Number one. If you're subscribed to me, what do I need to do to get you watching more of my videos? If you're watching some of my videos, what do I need to get you from just watching them to commenting on them? You know, that's the progression. I want a community. I want engagement. I want you guys to like what I'm putting out there. So feedback, let me know. I'm open. I'm trying. I appreciate it. Either way, thank you. Let's do this. I've been blabbing for too long. I mean, we might as well start with the obvious, right? It's also at the top of the hotness. Unfathomable. BSG 2.0. From the same designer, the same company. We're going to see what is better, what is new, what is this all about. You're Cthulhu, you're on a ship, ship's trying to be sunk. What do they have in store for us? Characters, new traders, IP-ish. Now, again, what is going to happen? Because Battlestar Galactica is also on the hotness list right now, and that's why. Now, the question is going to be, okay, what is going to happen with Battlestar Galactica? Now, don't fear, if you have a copy like me of Battlestar Galactica, this isn't going to be like a lot of the other reprints where the value may go down, because I think a lot of people are really still attached to the original IP and everything goes along with that. So I think those values are going to stay just as much, or, you know, in the future. So the MSRP right now is $80. What are other sites going to be listing it as? How many expansions are going to be down the line for this? Is this going to be a complete experience in the core itself, or are we going to need or prefer to have some expansions like some people say with BSG? I don't know. I'm not as familiar with BSG. I have a copy. I'm never going to get it played. I'm eventually going to sell it probably. But this is really appealing to me. I kind of like this theme more, although I do like being able to say frack during a game. This is probably going to be more streamlined. It's going to be easier to get to the table. There's not probably going to be as much overhead meta, I'm guessing, because I think they're trying to get it out to a new crowd. And that is what is really appealing from this side of things. And that's why I'm really excited. If you want more details, check my video from yesterday. It's a 4 or 5 minute blurb about what we know, what we don't know, speculation. There you go. Next up is Now and Never, Red Raven Games. And why is this on the hotness? Because the pre-order just came up. Red Raven Games is backing off, at least in part. I don't know the whole policy. I haven't looked in their details on their website, or their deets, if you will, about whether or not they're just getting away from Kickstarter in general and they're doing more of like the Stonemaier Games thing, or if they're just, you know, taking this one more to retail market in the first place. Now, I'm going to paraphrase here. I'm not sure if it's the actual like sequel or if it's just the spiritual successor to the previous game, Near and Far, because it has a very similar aesthetic like all Red Raven games, but it also has very similar playstyle. It is a 1 to 4 player adventure style game. Tile placement, hand management, action, manipulation, resource gathering. There was this village. It's called the Monument. A crystallite meteor comes down. Monsters come out from that. They destroy it. They take over things. 20 years later, supposedly the monsters are weakening. Now you are going in trying to defeat them, exile them, get back what was yours. You are trying to rebuild your ancestral village and guide the rest of your group, your family, your village back to their home. Competitive strategy game, 1 to 4 players, asymmetrical powers, trying to rebuild said village like I just mentioned. As with a lot of city building, what you build, where you build it, how close it is to other things is going to play an effect, short term, but also long term in terms of planning. Not only are you going to be building your own stuff, you're also going to be interacting and being able to hire other people's specialists in order to help build as well. You're also going to be fighting off said creatures that I mentioned as well. And then, like a lot of Loki games, you're exploring this fantastical fantasy setting with bizarre technology, people, and creatures. Like several of their other games in the past, there are two modes. There is a story mode and there is just a play mode. When you are playing in said story mode, you are reading from a story book in order to see the ramifications, the consequences of your choices, how it interacts with your personal character's story, and what is happening in the world around them in that way. Again, the aesthetic is very similar to a lot of the Red Raven games. Laukit has a very distinct style, and there are a lot of people, just like with Stonemaier games, that have a very cult following of this, and it is on the hotness for a reason. People are backing it, pre-ordering it ad nauseum from what I have seen. Again, a little bit of everything, and you can see here the exploration with the much larger board out there, how much of that you're going to be exploring, finding new, how much of it is going to be pre-populated. There's definitely tile placement as it says. So if you want more details, you can go check it out on the Red Raven Games website. They've got a full pre-order page up. You can see there, 90 plus minute per session. They've got a trailer. They've got the whole, what you're going to be getting in the box, including what they would say would be deluxe and stretch goals in that sense. You go down a little bit further, you see a little bit more. It also says they're going to be trying to ship in Q4 of 2021. But again, as with all things right now, shipping, you could easily see that delayed with the shipping fiasco that's going on. So that is what you need to know. You're getting metal coins here as well. And they even have a rulebook PDF that you can check out in addition. So there you go. Next up is one of the ones I have my eyes on and is one of the few things I'm actually thinking of picking up at a retail side of things right now, and that is Imperium. Imperium Classics as well as Imperium Legends. And this is a deck building game where you have your set civilization and you are going head to head against another said civilization, and they are all unique asymmetric factions, and you are battling it out trying to be the victor. This is from Osprey Games, and as someone who is really into the deck building side of things, it is apparently a notch up in terms of complexity of how you are going through. It sort of gives me, now stay with me on this one, the Villainous vibe in terms of how you're manipulating your own deck and trying to get through your own deck and trying to manage things, but in a more original and heavier side of things than what Villainous is. So that's where the comparison ends. But it just gives me that little bit of sense. The review copies are out there. They're floating around. Early hype is very, very positive. And as someone who is very interested in this game as well, the price point is relatively reasonable. I'm probably going to be picking it up. It's just more a matter of time and whether or not I get it now or later. I'd love to trade for it. But, this is one that's probably going to sneak into my shopping cart. So don't be surprised if you see it on the shelf behind me in a couple weeks either. But that is why Imperium, now the Classics is on the hotness. Legends is the other expansion of the two. The Legends is more appealing to me, but I don't think you go wrong with either if you're looking at it. So check it out. See if it's right for you. I mean, The Witcher is still on the hotness, right? The Witcher is still on the hotness because they raised over $8 million. My review was up last week. I don't know what I'm going to do with this. I ended up bumping my pledge down to the $1 pledge. I go halvesies on it. I really think it is going to be a very, very solid game, but I also sort of have some FOMO with it, and I don't think I need all of the expansions, and I'm not sure I want to pay that price point because I disagree with some of the other people out there that said the miniatures are really going to be more important on the map in terms of like remembering where the monsters are. Like that wasn't a problem for us when we played it. And I think the price difference between the non-miniature version and the miniature version was so much so that it made it a little bit harder for me to consider from that side of things. And for a while, I just kept the core pledge, the non-miniature version. But on the last day, I decided to downgrade to the one so I can see what happens more, not the solo side of things, but the cooperative side of things. Because the review that I did and the access that I had was just to the competitive. So if the cooperative looks really good, I could see myself easily upgrading that, easily maybe even picking up like the legendary expansion as well. But I'm going to be watching it very closely as it comes to the pledge manager as they release more information. I just wanted to see what the cooperative, because if the cooperative looks really good, I'm definitely going to be putting a copy of it on my shelf, period. But because it just ended, because the clicks are still there, because people are still going back and forth like I am, that's why it's still on the hotness. There's going to be a lot of attention on it, not only now, but especially as it gets further in development, and especially as it gets closer to reaching backers in the first place. Deliverance. In case you didn't see my roundup from last week, Deliverance is a 1 to 4 player Christian inspired angels versus demons. And spoilers for my review, I'll tell you right now, one of the questions in the comment section on the previous video was, is it preachy? No, it's not. So if you're concerned about that already, no. And so if that helps your mind a little bit, go check it out, because it is, again, a very, very solid dungeon crawler. My review hopefully will be out by the end of the week, if I can sit down for long enough to film not only the review side of things, but also some gameplay for you so that you can see a little bit of what it entails. And it's just unique enough that it does stuff in slightly different manner, that it's going to challenge you. And again, spoilers here, it's a hard game. This is one of the hardest dungeon crawlers I've played. It's just difficult. And I'll talk about that more in the review, both as a positive and a negative. So if you're looking at something, the price point is also very, very reasonable. I think you need to check it out if you like that sort of game. Now, if you're not a dungeon crawl person, this isn't also going to probably change your mind, but it's raising almost $200,000 right now, so it's definitely got some eyes on it. The aesthetic is very pretty. The angels that you're playing as are unique. The darkness mechanic that you are going up against in terms of the bad stuff that happens to you and how you're interacting is interesting. And again, like I said, you can go miniatures, you can go non-miniatures. The price is very reasonable. It is sort of, shooting up the Kickstarter popularity list as well if you go to the ranking by popularity right now. So that's why it's on the hotness. That's what you should know. Check it out. Oath. What week haven't I talked about Oath that's been on the hotness, right? I should start keeping track of like weeks on the hotness, on the sports side of things. They say like weeks on the power rankings. I mean, this is like weeks on the hotness for Oath. But Oath is finally being received by US backers and all of the hype on social media. I'm seeing it like every day I go on Board Game Twitter. Somebody else is talking about it. Somebody else is posting on it. There's a post at least every day or every other day on Reddit Board Games as well. So, asking a question or talking about it or doing something like that. It's just going to be a very interesting game. And I think a lot of people who are going to like it are really going to like it. And again, I think sort of like Root, if it's not for you, it's probably not going to appeal to the non-fan audience. And you know what? That's completely okay. I love things that do that. Like, you have to respect things that stay true to themselves as well, whatever it may be. So I think this is going to be a great game. Cole Worley, Kyle Farron, Leader Games. Looks like another big hit for them. What more can I say? Go check it out. If you're intrigued about it at all, if you're interested about it at all, it's going to be good. But it's going to be pricey too. So know what you're getting into. Know that it's going to be a game that rewards you playing over time, playing repeated plays with the same group, with even the same meta, so that you can evolve it that way as a storytelling campaign, but not really campaign game. So there's Oath. Next up is Merchant's Cove. I think I touched on this one previously. Kickstarter has just been delivering, I think so in the last month or so, to backers. And this is a asymmetrical Euro style game where you are merchants on this seaport, selling your wares, buying low, selling high, trying to maximize profit over several rounds. And it is akin to, the previously mentioned Root that I see the comparisons of. Now, again, it's a very loose comparison. I know people kind of, let me know last time in the comment section that it's not fully apt, but in the sense that there's asymmetry, in the sense that you are doing things differently, and you don't always see that asymmetry present in the worker placement side of things, right? We see it plenty in the Amerithrash side of things, but asymmetrical worker placements where you're each having to do different things or starting out with different things and going different routes fully in that sense, it's definitely there. Now, I heard a few early rumblings on some of the reviews that some of the gameplay is definitely enhanced in terms of replayability and not feeling as samey. Now, again, I'm using that very loosely as someone who agrees that, a lot of people are playing these games once or twice and then they're sitting on shelves for a while. But if you are going to be one of those picking it up and really heavily playing it, I guess the Secret Stash expansion, I think is what they called it, is something that they really recommended picking up in terms of just adding that much more from that side of things to actually give it sort of like that extra oomph without adding a whole lot of depth or complexity. Apart from that, I can't really tell you too much. It is a worker placement. It is a little bit outside of my comfort zone, but It's getting early hype. The reviews on it are relatively positive so far. Everyone's getting their copies, and so it's getting a lot more clicks. People are just talking about it. That is why it's on the hotness. Next up from Lucky Duck Games, Destinies. Now, this is a very interesting game. This is a 1 to 3 player game. I'll be completely frank with you. When I pulled the game out over the weekend, I was like, oh, where's the 4th player stuff? Oh, it's only a 3 player game. Good job, genius. Anyway, so this is a 1 to 3 player game, like I mentioned, of this storytelling app-based system that Lucky Duck Games has gone to with the QR codes and the scanning and the moving around and the managing resources. And this is another take on it. And if you saw my Chronicles of Crime review, I recognized the fact that it is a solid system, but I recognized also that it was not for me. Now, again, I'm not going to give you my full thoughts on it right now because, spoilers, I got to make you work for it a little bit and click at least something else later in the week or next week, right? But I was very, very pleasantly surprised. I went into this not thinking this was going to be a game for me, and I left the first game going, wow, I'm actually really impressed. So this game is app-driven, and it has a very unique system in how you are actually playing. These white dice are your generic, you roll everything stat-wise testing dice. And then the purple ones are ones that you will occasionally get refreshed or refresh one on every single turn. These are your stat markers that you go on the right side here. And the interesting thing is you're rolling these dice, and then the sum of the dice, however many of these little markers they pass, that's how many successes you get on the test. So you're trying to manipulate the die to get more numbers, and you're trying to manipulate these and move them to the left down here so that you're passing more of them at lower numbers. It's a very unique system, and honestly, it works relatively well because the other element of things are these items and these cards down here, the other resource that you're going to be managing in the game, apart from the money to buy those in the first place, but you're going to be able to mitigate some of the dice and some of the values themselves with these very easily, and they are abundant, and so it just works. So but people have been getting it, backers have been getting it. Again, I'm gonna have a review out sometime later next week, but it is a very different system than anything else is out there. That's why people are talking about it. That's why people are interested. So if it's looking like it's something for you, check it out. Lucky Duck Games. Last but not least on the hotness, I know this is going to bridge into the non-hotness news as well. From FFG, from their Arkham Horror, the card game line. They had a big week of announcements, and all Cthulhu related, essentially. And this is the latest expansion. And now, why is this so important? Why is this so newsworthy? Because the cycles of the LCG that they have been doing ad nauseum for their games up until this point, especially with, you can make an argument that this is their flagship game, Arkham Horror. And they have been having these big box expansions followed by like 6 small mini expansions, all of them with combination of a few investigation side of things and a few campaign elements. And now what they have decided to do is now separate those out into just 2 big boxes overall. One being the campaign and the other being the investigator. And why that matters is because then the other element of things that is with the Arkham Horror LCG right now is because, why is that important? Because FFG is also known, especially with Arkham Horror as of the late, last year or two, having things out of print and out of stock for periods of time, then preventing people from being able to play the full cycle. And the secondary market then becomes marked up because people can only get like 2 or 3 of the 6 of the cycle that they want to play through, and they can't play through it all. And then, all of that leads to. And so this is consolidating that into just 2 boxes. And then you can get either one that you want, because now that they're saying you can get this, they're saying that also that core that you have of this, you can play the campaign with just the core box. You don't need anything else. So you don't even need the other investigators. So you can really split it a little bit more that way. And the price of this is not much more than the big box expansion that started out the cycle in the first place. So it's really going to be intriguing. I'll be honest with you. Speaking of things that I mentioned earlier that are going to be maybe showing up in my retail cart, this is super high. Even though I've told you guys I haven't really played Arkham Horror LCG a lot, this Antarctica horrors ice theme, especially with just being able to do the campaign stuff, because I have plenty of other investigators that I'm never going to get to, that is really appealing to me. And we're going to see what this does from the retail side of things, how much this is received and how well it's received. And we're just going to have to kind of wait and see, because I hope that this is received well, because I kind of like it a little bit better this way. What do you guys think? Do you like this better this way? Do you like it better the other way, so you can kind of piecemeal it? But I mean, overall price point's probably a little bit better as well. So that's why Arkham Horror is on the hotness, and that's what you need to know about it. Now, depending on how you feel about this, either way, it's news and noteworthy. Catan, right? I think there was one on like Kickstarter from years and years ago that never got fulfilled, but Catan from the Catan shop, Catan 3D edition. $300 though, but you can get it, and you can get it in August. So if you want to see some of this imagery, I mean, look at this thing, right? That is, say what you want about Catan, that's pretty cool. That the aesthetic there, you know, if you could get the expansions with that, I mean, that's pretty awesome. I won't lie. These are pretty cool pictures. This is, I mean, you're going to be paying it. It's a collector's thing for sure, but it's kind of cool. I wanted to throw it in there for any of you Catan fanatics out there, but either way, it's news and noteworthy. So there you go. Now, next up, and this is random. This was the easiest website for me to show you what it is. And this is Disney's SideKicks. And now, why is this notable? I mean, you're going, why are you even talking about this, Chris? Because it's from one of my favorite designers out there, Eric Lang. And stuff he does is it's just quality. And so I wanted to mention it from that side of things. So what is it? It is this 2 to 4 player game where you are cooperating as pairs of sidekicks trying to rescue your heroes who have been captured by the villains. Battle villains, rescue villagers around the outside, collect keys to unlock the castle, and then go into the center of the castle to beat the final villain to free your friends. Who are we going to have? We're going to have some classic ones here. So you can see a little bit here of who we're actually going to have. Lumiere, the 3 fairy godmothers, Tinkerbell, Timon and Pumbaa, Abu holding that giant sword. That is awesome. And then you're going to have your classic villains like Gaston, Maleficent, Captain Hook, Scar, and of course, can't be anything without Jafar. So again, looks really interesting. Looks like something that could be very surprising. And you know me, co-op games have a blind spot and a sweet spot in my heart, so I'm definitely going to be checking it out. Maybe not pre-ordering it, but it's going to be on my radar as well when it comes out. Next up, and this wasn't on the hotness, but it's worthy of the hotness, and that is the latest big box, speaking of FFG again, of Marvel Champions, and this is finally tying it in. Thanos, the Infinity Gauntlet, the Mad Titan's shadow. We all knew it was coming, right? The Guardians of the Galaxy were the precursor, just like in the movies. Now the game is catching up, and where this game is really going to be catching full stride, I think. As with probably the previous other big box expansion, the Galaxy's Most Wanted, you can definitely imagine that there's going to be a little bit more of a story to this, a little bit more of a campaign to it, and the difficulty is definitely going to be much higher than the originals. Now it says there are going to be 5 scenarios, including the members of Thanos' clique, the Black Order, and they're going to be adding one of the personal fan favorites of my own, Adam Warlock, that you can play as. So again, this one is going to be big. I don't think it's going to be out before the end of 2021, but if you're a fan of Marvel Champions, this one you have to have your eye on. So if you're interested, go check it out. Next up, we already talked about Lucky Duck Games enough, but this was the latest announcement on Facebook, and this is Divinus. It looks amazing as well. I saw a lot of people commenting already. I think you can expect to see, based on the comment section, Board Game Co. and Quackalope already have their copies being sent to them. So we'll see what happens with that. But what is it? Competitive, tile-laying, legacy game with an app. Again, those things are either going to turn you on right away like they do me, or they're going to turn you off. But what else do you need to know? 12 scenario campaign where you are exploring lands, adventuring, playing as gods in this epic clash between the Norse and the Greek pantheons. And you get to do one of my favorite, most underrated things. You get to open a new box of goodies at the beginning of every scenario to add more hidden stuff, more layers. I mean, that is right there. That hits me in the sweet spot. You are going to be forging and making permanent changes to your demigods throughout the campaign. That's going to be accomplished by forging artifacts, gaining special titles, as well as changing the faces of your dice that you're going to be using. persistent and changing scenarios, the app is going to keep track and there's going to be consequences to your actions over time. This looks like a great evolution. As I just mentioned, my fan of Destiny. This looks like the next level up, and I love the Pantheon side of things as well, as opposed to the typical just fantasy trope. So I'm going to have my eye on this. I'll probably join the line of raising my hand and seeing if they'll send me a copy too. But I'm going to be checking it out when we get more information regardless. So if that sounds good to you, check it out. In case you missed this, Z-Man Games is offering a reprint of the classic Tales of Arabian Nights. And if you're not aware, this game has been out of print for a while. This is the original like storybook style game in the Persian, sort of, you know, if you're not familiar with it at all, Aladdin circumstance style. And it is, you know, it's a classic for a reason. And it's been out of print for a while. The price has definitely been up. So now you can see, especially at the top there, that you can get a copy for $60. So I've seen people already actually, you know, getting details on their shipments, and I believe the pre-orders started on the 11th, or were getting mailed out on the 11th. So if you're interested, I don't know that there's going to be a ton of copies. Like, I don't think this is an unlimited amount. So if you're interested in it all in this, you definitely should go check it out. 2 more, and then we'll be done. We get to Capstone Games. Their latest announcement of their latest title is called Savannah Park, a 1 to 4 player sort of tile laying, design your own Savannah Park type game. So what are you going to be doing? You are going to be gathering animals into herds, leading them to watering holes, protecting them from natural disasters, and you're going to be moving them around so that you can order to score them the best. And it just looks cool. The aesthetic is nice. The components are nice. It seems like a really interesting style game. I have no idea whether or not it's going to be for me, but it's intriguing enough that I've got it bookmarked. I'm going to be waiting to see what happens. And, you know, there you go. That's Savannah Park. Does this look familiar? Did I mention Villainous already once in this video? Yes, I did, but why am I mentioning it again? Because coinciding with the launch of Disney's Loki, the show in the MCU, also going to be launching in August is going to be the latest expansion from Villainous, the Marvel side of things, and it's the Loki expansion, the Mischief and Malice expansion. So you can see right here what you're going to be getting, and it just looks kind of cool. Loki's a cool character. But I thought I'd mention it. I know Villainous also has a very cult following. Now, I've not heard as good things about some of the MCU stuff, but I still don't, you know, have a personal knowledge of it. So I just know that Loki is going to be adding another cool element to things. And, you know, again, more news, more noteworthy. There you go, if it's for you. Okay, that's it. That's the roundup. A lot of stuff, short amount of time, hopefully, and hope you liked it. Now, again, do you want to see shorter clips? If I focused on 1 or 2 of these things, gave you a little bit more nuance, made it like 5 minutes, would you like me periodically throwing those out at you? Or would you like more of a condensed version like this? Again, what are you guys going to view? What are you guys going to want to comment on and be engaged with? That's what I want to know. Let me know what you think. How was your gaming weekend? Like I said, mine was pretty good for once. So, as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for clicking. Thank you for getting me to 3,000. You guys have no idea. I never had any idea that it would ever get to this. So I'll have a little snippet, short news thing of 3,000 here later in the middle of the week, hopefully as well. Just where are things at? What are my thoughts in general? Where do I want to go? A little bit of that too, maybe. So again, thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a great week. Stay classy.